Good morning, folks. What's going on? It's Jacob. Just got out for an early morning walk down here on the beach. It's 20 past 5. A bit cloudy today, but sun's coming up and it is beautiful. Figured I'd take this opportunity to film a quick video. I've mentioned a couple of times in videos that I've dropped recently about a new network that I've launched called the Millionaire Leaders Network. And we've been covering off on some really important fundamental topics in there to set the scene before we really go live and launch into things. And one of the things that we've been talking about in there that came up on a call recently, which is the topic of this video, title of this video, is rich versus wealthy. You've got to be really careful that you optimize for the right thing, because I think ultimately only one of them is the right outcome. One of them will solve problems in one area of your life. One of them will solve the problems in all the areas of your life. And I've been blessed to spend a lot of time around a lot of people who've made a lot of money, both online and in my corporate career before I came online. And I've seen people who've done it right, and I've seen people who've done it wrong. And the cost of missing this, or ignoring it, or optimizing for the wrong thing can be massive. So I wanted to share this with you because for a lot of my 20s, I didn't really think about this. And I'm glad I still got to it early. Late 20s, early 30s. I had this illuminated for me via some mentors, and a couple of things happened and caused a lot of reflection. And I'm glad I got to it now and not in another 20 years, another 30 years, or never, like it happens for some people. So let's jam on this. And this location feels somewhat symbolic, because Tai Lopez talks about, whether you like Tai or not, he has some very smart guy and has some good advice. He talks about the good life, and the different, I guess, areas that entails. And to me, being able to live in a place like this and being able to wake up and go for a walk along the beach, and you can hear the waves, and it's so peaceful, and it's, you can clear your head and kind of escape. He talks about the good life, and so for me, this location is a part of that. But fundamentally, rich versus wealthy, right? If you want to simplify it, rich is where you might solve the money problem, or the money challenge, or the cash flow side of it. But if you're optimizing for that in a silo, there's a lot that you're neglecting, or potentially neglecting. How you're making that money, the vehicle that you're using, how much time you're investing into making it that you then cannot deploy into other areas. What relationships are falling away because of all the time and energy that's being put into that one element of it? What damage is being done to your health because all you're optimizing for is money? So when I think about rich, I think about the cash flow side of it. I think about the money side of it. And that is a very real piece that you need to solve. But I think it's a flaw. I think it's a serious flaw if your plan, in your plan, if that's the only thing you're optimizing for. And so if this video reaches one person who, at whatever age, realizes that they need to look at things beyond that like I had a light bulb around this probably about 4 years ago now, 3.5, 4 years ago, then it'll have done its job. You see, I'd made really good money in my corporate career, but it was working tons of hours, traveling a lot. My health suffered, relationships suffered, and I made the jump out of that path because I wanted a better way. Then I came online, and it's really hard to break habits. For me, from the time I was in high school all through my 20s, my advantage that had got me the things that I thought I wanted, that had helped me progress, move up the corporate ladder, make money, I could just outwork people. That was my thing. I just couldn't be outworked. I'd just figure it out, and I'd make it happen, and I'd pick something and I'd crush it. And I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but what I was blind to at the time was, I think, the other elements that you're costing yourself in the process. And so when I shifted online, it was really hard for me to break that pattern. I kind of fell back into the same routine of just burying myself in work again, because that was me. That was my identity. That's what I'd always done, and I didn't really know anything else. And again, it worked, right? Like, I crushed it in the affiliate space, won a ton of awards, got to travel the world, built some really strong foundations for my brand. Then I went in and launched my own products. First product did $1 million in 14 months, when most people's digital products never go anywhere. And so it works. And that's the challenge, is that you're gonna see results, but it's all the other stuff that it's costing you in the process, right? And it wasn't until in the early part of, I think it was 2021, where I had this big lull, and I'd just come out of another big win, winning a big award that I'd been pursuing, and I was just feeling kind of empty and a bit lost and didn't really know the next move. And honestly, a big part of me was starting to think maybe I should go back to the corporate game. I thought maybe I'd run my race doing this online stuff. And thankfully I didn't. I found a mentor, Travis, who illuminated this perspective for me. And for that, I messaged him the other day. I said, for that, I'm forever grateful. I'm grateful that he illuminated it for me at a young enough age. I'm not the youngest, but at a young enough age where I could make significant moves swiftly enough to mitigate the damage. I realized this before I had kids. I've now got one son, I've got another one on the way, and this has meant that I've been able to be there for so much of Hendrik's first year, and likewise with the second one, I'll be able to do the same, right? And here's what he illuminated for me. He didn't explain it like this in terms of rich versus wealthy. This is how it's kind of, I guess, manifested in my own mind. But what he did illuminate for me was intentionally asking questions about how you want to spend your time and who you want to spend it with, and deliberately designing your days, weeks, months to be filled with not just stuff you want to do, not just stuff that fulfills you, but minimizing the toxic stuff, minimizing the stuff that when you see it in your calendar, you're like, fuck, I really don't want to do that. And there's always going to be things that you have to do that you don't want to do. You're not going to be able to completely avoid it. But quite often, when we're only optimizing for money, we stack things in our calendar that we hate. When maybe if we were just prepared to go a little bit slower, climb that income curve a little bit less quickly, we could do it in a way that's on our terms. We could do it in a way that we really, really enjoy. And what's funny is quite often not only will you get to the same point, you'll get there with a lot more enjoyment, but then you'll blow past it for a longer period of time because it's a lot more sustainable. And so when I started working with Travis, he opened my eyes to actually asking and answering these questions. And what I found is that the more you can go deep internally and have these tricky conversations with yourself and actually reflect, the more rewarding, the more fulfilling, the more enjoyable this game can ultimately become. And I think those questions, and more importantly the answers, are the bridge from rich to wealthy. And so when I talk about wealthy, I talk about having all the major areas of your life dialed in. Making time for yourself, making time for the business, making time for the relationships, making time for your health, actually prioritizing those things and not sacrificing it all for money. When I talk about wealthy, I talk about intentionality of actually going, well, how do I want to spend my time? What time do I want to wake up? Do I want to set wake up time, or do I want it to be flexible? I don't wake up at 5 o'clock every day. It just so happened that I did today, and so I came out and got out for an early morning walk, right? Do you want the flexibility, or do you want rigid structure? It's not about one or the other being right. It's about the intentionality of actually looking and going, what works for me and what do I enjoy, and what's going to allow me to optimize for all those areas as best as possible. Because when you can find the balance between all of those elements, that's when you've got it nailed. Maybe it doesn't mean you make the most money in the world as quickly as possible, but if you can strike the balance between making a really, really good amount of money while keeping your health in check, while being able to be there for your family, for your friends, have a good social life, being able to do as much or as little travel as you want, being able to live where you want to live, when you strike the balance across all of those areas, you've won. Even if you don't have the biggest net worth, you don't make the most money in the world, you are truly wealthy when you strike a balance. And it's not easy. I'm not sitting here saying if you just ask a couple of questions and answer them, you'll be fine. It's a constant process. You see that sun coming up now, breaking through, stunning. It's a constant process of realigning and iterating and reflecting and re-asking those questions. But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to look at what you're doing now, and maybe you're nailing some of the areas, but maybe some of the areas need work as well. You've got to look at what you're doing now, and you've got to start asking those questions. You've got to start asking those hard questions and having those hard conversations with yourself to find out what areas am I dropping the ball. Travis gave me this great analogy that's always stuck with me. He said there's life is, you're juggling, right? You're juggling balls at all times. You're juggling the business, family, relationships, partner, money, health. He said, but the thing that we forget is that some of those balls are made of rubber and some of those balls are made of glass. And if we drop them, some of them will bounce back, and some of them can bounce back, and some of them won't break, but some of them will shatter. And what people tend to do is they tend to put all the priority into the rubber balls, the money, the business, which can bounce back, which if you do drop the ball on it, is very unlikely to be terminal. Whereas those really important relationships and your health, they're more so made of glass. You might get a couple of chances, but damage can be done. And yet we tend to optimize for the things that, we optimize for the balls that if we drop them, they'll bounce back, while we're neglecting the ones that if we drop them, they'll very likely shatter. And so I guess to bring this all to a head, if this hits one person in my audience and helps them shift from just thinking about making money to thinking about finding balance across all areas, then it'll have done its job. I don't care what age you are, I don't care what phase you're in. If we can illuminate the areas that are being neglected, and we can start asking hard questions, and we can start having somewhat tricky conversations with ourselves about what we're prioritizing and what we're putting our time and energy into, the reward out the other side is enormous. Then you got to hold the line. Then you got to have the strength and conviction to go, this is the way I'm going to do things. I appreciate that things might go a little bit slower, but this is me. This feels aligned. This matches the season I'm in now. This allows me to do all the things that are important to me. And even if it means I move a little bit slower, I'm okay with that. And then that's a whole new challenge, is holding the line and not falling back into bad habits, not chasing quick wins, not sacrificing it all for a quick dollar. Because it's kind of human nature. We want things as quick as possible, right? So hopefully this hits home for one person. Reflect on your journey, reflect on where you're at, and go, am I just trying to be rich? Or am I doing the right things that can ultimately make me wealthy? And this isn't just a conversation for people who are early on and first 10K a month type stuff. Like, I have this conversation with people. I've got private clients making $400,000 a month, $1 million a month, and we talk about this stuff. They've sorted the money piece in a lot of cases, but there's work to be done on the wealthy side of things. Finding balance, simplifying the business, building more leverage, unlocking more time so that they can invest it into those other areas. So if you are further along, there's moves you can make to recorrect and end up on this path. Where if you're earlier on, heed this advice and build with it in mind and do it right the first time so that you don't have to correct later. Okay. Rich versus wealthy. It's a very, very interesting conversation. Keep it front of mind as you're building. Keep it front of mind day to day. Remember that you've got the ability to decide how you want to spend your time, what you want to prioritize, and keep in mind that it's okay to go a little bit slower if it means that you can really sit back, enjoy the view, and take it all in. I appreciate you hanging out with me in this one. I'll talk to you all soon. Ta.